All right. So, oh, thank you for the likes. Okay. So, you know the drill. I usually do lives and I put makeup on while either I read scary stories or share scary stories. So, we're going to do that. So, I'm going to play the thing.
Don't watch this at night. Personal spooky story time, and we're going to call this one That Wasn't My Brother. When I was about 18 years old, I had gone out and I had a very strict dad growing up. If you're Mexican or Hispanic, you know, a curfew was at midnight. Thankfully, my sister would cover for me and she would hide pajamas in the restroom. That way, if I got home late, I would go straight to the restroom. It would change.
Thank you.
And if he caught me coming home late, I was already in my pajamas and I'd be like, what do you mean I was in the restroom? So this specific night, I get home past my curfew. I go straight to the restroom. I use the restroom, wash my face, brush my teeth, put on my pajamas. The way that our house is set up is a long hallway, restroom, my bedroom, my brother's bedroom. But as you're walking to the bedrooms, the living room is right here. So as I'm walking to my bedroom, the house is dark as hell. Our front door has glass and the porch light kind of gleams in. So I'm walking to my bedroom and I happen to look in the living room. Right in front of our front door, I see a little boy. And he's standing there. But what's crazy is the way that he's standing in this perfect spot, the light cuts off right here. So I can see from here down, but I can't see his face. His face is literally black. Like I can't see any features. I can't see nothing. I'm not exactly sure what he's wearing, but it looks like overalls or something like that. My first instinct isn't, oh my God, that's a ghost. My instinct is, what the hell is my brother doing awake right now? I stand there.
Okay, so don't mean to cut off anybody's story time, but I wanted to add something in there. So, one of the things that I've noticed with hauntings, because most people are like, oh, how did they not notice something? Or people like expect hauntings to be more like in the movies where it's so obvious, it's spelled out for you. But the reality is that hauntings are very subtle. When I went to the Queen Mary, it took me like 5 seconds to realize what exactly I was seeing because I saw an apparition in front of me. Hi, how are you? Um, it's very subtle. So like when she's explaining that she thought it was her brother, that makes sense because like your mind isn't going to automatically jump to conclusions that it's a ghost or a haunting. It's going to take a minute. So that's another reason why people are, when they make comments on these like videos where it's like a ghost footage or apparition, they're like, "Oh, yeah, it's so conveniently recorded." And it's like, "Yeah, that to me is too much of a coincidence." Cuz like again, it happens so fast and your brain's like processing like what are you seeing that by the time you probably take out your camera and stuff, it's really hard to capture things. Not to say that it doesn't happen. Fish Haunting says, "Hello beautiful, you are so beautiful." Oh, thanks. Johnson says, "Hi, how are you? Are you well?" I am in Los Angeles in the US. Awesome. Thank you. You guys are so nice. Okay. So I'll continue the story.
And I'm calling for my brother. I'm literally like, Eric. My brother's name is Eric. So I'm whispering and I'm like, Eric. Trying to make sure that my parents don't hear me because it's about 3 a.m. and
the haunting hour.
Brother is just standing there. And I'm like, Eric. Nothing. No movement. Nothing. So I'm literally standing there for what feels like forever, waiting for my brother to cut his shit out and fucking go lay down.
Which house is
Chris? Get my
Chris?
ass kicked. And he's just standing there. So now my wheels are turning and I'm like, okay, what's going on? And when I tell you this is the most I've ever been scared, like I was shook, I was shitting myself. I decide, okay, I'm gonna go to my brother's room. Turn on my flashlight. I'm looking, and my brother is asleep in his room.
Ooh.
I was so scared. I didn't even go back to my room. Like I was freaking out. I've talked about my mom's house being haunted before. What's crazy is that it's inexplainable because my dad built their house I'd understand if it was like an older house or something like that.
Okay, so let's talk about that. Houses. Um, Chris, do I think the Amityville houses are haunted? No, I don't know. The whole thing with Amityville, we know that there's a lot of hoax surrounding that, so it's really tough to say. I know that people now, I don't wait, do they live there now? Does anyone live in that Amityville house as a recent? I don't remember. But I do know that there was a lot of hoax and fraudulent stuff happening around that. Um, my doll, maybe if it did, that'd be awesome. Um, so I don't know. I don't know. It's really tough to say. I'm not off the top of my head. I don't know all the details of the Amityville house. Do I think it's haunted? No. I don't know. I just remember seeing a lot of hook stuff around it. Hi, Alvy. I am live on both YouTube and TikTok, just so you guys know. That is because when I do live streams, and that's one of the reasons why I've been less motivated to do live streams on here, is because whenever I'm putting makeup on and I'm sharing scary stories over on the Clock app, it basically starts to flag me for like either selling items, which I'm not, and I should just be careful what I'm saying because again, I don't trust it, but it flags me for like the weirdest things ever, and that's why I tend to do live streams on both, like either TikTok and something else, because that happens. And then also little violin, it's not the big of a deal, it's normal, but every time I do a live stream on TikTok, I also lose like an immense amount of followers. And I'm like, okay, apparently me live streaming on this platform upsets people enough to unfollow me a lot. So that's another thing. Not a big deal, but people are allowed to choose who they want to follow, I suppose. Hi, Galaxy, you're from Iowa. Ooh, I've been to Iowa once. So I used to live in Minnesota, fun fact. Google, yeah, TikTok needs to, they do. So that's one of the reasons why I stopped. It's because I would get flagged for things like, it's like, you're trying to sell things. You said these things a lot. Because, like, obviously, if you're telling scary stories and if you're reading stories from other people, there's going to be like sad undertones and dark undertones when they're telling the story. And so yeah, I get flagged for that. I'm like, okay, I don't know. And it's not even anything bad, but I just want to say it on here because again, I don't know what's happening here. So, anyway, so this person is talking about how they lived in a house that her parents built, and she experienced a haunting where she thought she saw this apparition, and she thought it was her younger brother named Eric. And when she went to check on his bedroom, he was sleeping, and she's just shocked because the house was built by her parents. So, like, it's not like anyone lived there prior. Well, hauntings can also be caused by objects. So if you are somebody that likes to collect certain items, like not always, right? So like again, not always. But if you like some, if you collect vintage items, haunted items, things like that, there is a story that I tend to tell often that it's a great example. That's why. It's this family moved into a house and they actually acquired a an item that used to belong to the previous owners, but they kept it there, and it was like some type of antique, and so they were not taking care of it. It just like collected dust and they started experiencing hauntings. And when they had people come visit, apparently it wasn't even the house, it was the item. So I don't know. Things like that can happen too. Chris says, speaking of, are you going to any haunted places soon? So I did go to a friend's a place where my friend took me, and let's just say that because I'm going to be posting it on YouTube. I've been lagging with editing these videos, but if for anybody who is over on TikTok and even YouTube, if you only watch my YouTube shorts, I do have a playlist of investigations that I've done, and I have done one investigation that I'm hoping to edit soon and post it over. And I guess I'll give you an insight now. It was like the craziest thing ever because Phil Collins just popped up on my phone playing. And look, no shade to Phil Collins. Obviously, he is talented, but like, I, on my own accord, don't listen to Phil Collins. So when that popped up on my phone, I'm like, hello, why is Phil Collins popping up? And you know what's so funny? I brought it up a month later, because this investigation now happened like 2-3 months ago at this point. And so I I was like at the store, I think, and like my husband and I were just talking about that, and Phil Collins started playing on the radio. I'm like, what is this? So that's a little bit of insight. I'm hoping to edit it, and it's with a good friend of mine, Sapphire. She's amazing, love her, and yeah. I am a smart X. I love that. I'm reading a haunted hikes book. Wait, what are you reading? What hikes book is this? Speaking of like hiking and outdoors, if you do like those, if you like when people reassess and do deep dives on missing people in out in the woods, national parks, but they don't go down like this supernatural route and they try to dissect it in a very logical step by step, and also by people who have done numerous hikes and traveled across the world, you should listen to Locations Unknown. I genuinely like hearing their thought process and missing person cases out in national parks and hiking trails. As someone who used to live in Colorado, I used to do a lot of hikes. So when I do hear them talk, I'm like, oh my God, that makes sense. That tracks. So just a little fun fact. But if you have a book recommendation, please recommend. I love book recommendations. I have tons of books. Do I get to finish them all? No. But I do love I do love looking at books with interesting stuff in it. The one that I was reading a while back was reincarnation stuff. Yeah, it's really good. Okay. I feel like I'm missing a conversation going on here. All right, hopefully it catches up. I think I missed something. Oh, you're talking about Amityville. Yeah, yeah, that's what I mean. It's like I also don't really like to take the paranormal route or like it's haunted route with Amityville, because you're right, there's so many things regarding it. Isn't there a documentary that recently was launched, I think, on Amityville? I'm sure there's plenty though already, but just out of curiosity. Victor says, I'm almost done with these series, 25 books long. Ooh. Is it like mini stories, or were you reading 25 books? Sorry, I think I misread. I'm still waking up, so forgive me. Emily Rose. Oh, yeah. So speaking of stories and stuff like that, I recently watched The Ritual. I didn't really get to promote it much on my channel because I didn't really have much material to promote it with, but it was interesting. It has Al Pacino, right? Al Pacino in it. And the I'm botching up names here right now. This is what happens when I'm still waking up and I'm not 100% awake. And then I'm also just like rambling. Sometimes I'm like in my mind, it's going 100 miles per hour of like, there's these details. But I recently watched a movie called The Ritual, and it just released in theaters. It is a BuzzFeed Studios film, like they produced it. They all produced it with another production company, and it was interestingly filmed. And I feel so bad for saying this, and I don't want people to think, oh, it's not scary because I'm saying this, but the way that it was filmed, you know, when you watch The Office and it has kind of like that shaky camera vibe where like it's not stabilized. It's like very much you can tell someone's holding the camera. And even when they zoom in on a person, you're like, oh, okay. It's very much, I think of The Office. And I know that there are other films, like found footage films, have that quality. But for this, immediately my mind went to The Office. And it was good. The story, I actually want to do a video on this. Maybe I can start relaunch my podcast because I've taken a break from my podcast. But it's based off a real story about a girl who was possessed. And it's definitely a possession exorcist type of film. And it takes place of this girl. She goes to a church. They keep her there, and all this stuff happens. And yeah, Victor, it was interesting, the shaky quality of it. I didn't know what to think of it, to be honest. I think that it could have been just as eerie, scary, suspenseful without any of that. but I'm curious to kind of see what other people think of that. Hi. Oh, thank you, Fish. That's so sweet. Wait, is this taking a lag on my, okay. So, I don't know. All right, we'll finish the story in here though, so I can continue putting on my
It was a
face.
new house. Like, I have not done any research on the land, if there used to be something there, if something happened there. I have not done any research, but I have seen and heard so many things inside that house. It is fucking haunted. It wasn't a mimic, because now that I think about it, this little boy was definitely younger than my brother, and we've seen him many times. He loves to play peekaboo. We have 2 living rooms in my parents' house, and my mom was always in the smaller living room in her recliner, and a wall separates both living rooms with a half moon, and she says that she'd be there in the morning, and this is the wall, and she could see the little boy like peeking.
Ooh, that'd be scary.
Look, he kind of like, or if this is the wall, he kind of like, you know. But at least it's a friendly ghost.
That's always a plus. If you guys have any
spooky stories that you'd like to share with me, please send them via DM or email.
Okay, here's the thing. I genuinely, when I go to haunted places, I generally always want to communicate with the children. I know like that's a very polarizing thing with hauntings because there's like a group of people that believe, oh, children, whenever there's like children spirits around, they're not really children. And then there's other people who are like, well, why wouldn't there be? Maybe it's trauma, whatever, right? But I think that's the part that interests me when I go to locations and there's stories about children and the spirits of children. The one interaction I had 2 interactions with children's spirits. One of them was at the Stanley Hotel in Colorado. If you know, you know. But if you ever get a chance to go to Colorado, please make a trip up there. Now, when you go to the main building of the Stanley, like the main building where they have like the bar, where like the hauntings, where everything took place. Not to say that the other buildings are not haunted, they are, but the main building, if you go to the very top floor, that's the floor where I guess like back in its like beginning stages of it opening, they did have children up there. And that was because, well, it was open operating hours, right, to house people, or people would stay and check in. The maids that would work, their children would be up there. So whenever you go up there, you'll see like candy on that floor, and you're not supposed to really eat the candy. I don't know if anyone has ever gone there and ate the candy though, because I don't know. I have a lesson in that one. So I took my friend, and this is like back in the very beginning stages of me, like not sure if I believed in the supernatural, not sure if I believed in any of that stuff. But we went there just to like get a reaction, to see what could happen, right? And it was me and my friend, and he was a very skeptical person. He also was an atheist. I don't know if he is now, but he was an atheist. And so he was like super not like, didn't really care, but he entertained the idea and went with me. And we were on that floor, and there was candy everywhere. There was Kit Kat, Snickers. Like, how can I forget the name of one of my favorite candy bars? Snickers. And there was also like, of course, like lollipops, all kinds of stuff, right? And obviously, like, I'm looking at these Snickers, I'm looking at the Kit Kats, and I'm like, I kind of want one. But like, if they're leaving it here for like the spirits of the children, this is like my inner monologue as a skeptic. I was like, I don't really want to be, have my sugar tooth ruin the vibe. So I'm just leaving it there. And I also just got the vibe that, like, aside if you believe in it, just kind of weird to grab free candy that people clearly believe in this stuff and they're leaving it there for, right? I don't know if anyone else. Snickers is a different story, right? So I'm just like, I should just leave it there though, right? My friend's like walking around, he's looking at all the candy in the hallways, and he's like, Tom says, I'm gonna eat it. well, this might change your opinion. So my friend's like walking around the hallway, and he's like looking around, and he's like, you know what? Before we leave, I'm gonna grab myself this Kit Kat. So he leans and grabs it, and then I hear the shock. By the way, it's really dry up there that you get shock. You know what's called the shock? When you touch something, it's like the shock, and then your hair gets all like staticky. So he gets the shock, and he collapses. He collapsed. This dude collapsed in front of me, like bending over, trying to grab the Kit Kat. He got shocked and collapsed, you guys. And I just nervously laughed, but I extended my hand, like, are you okay? Like, what happened? The dude got silent. He's like, I want to leave. I want to leave. I was like, are you sure? Like, I thought you didn't believe in this stuff. And obviously, like, I'm smirking here because it's like, hello, how are you going to tell me this whole time that you don't believe in this stuff? You get shocked, you collapse, and now you want to leave. You are now scared. You want to leave. So then we get in the car, we drive back, an hour back to Denver, because Estes Park in Denver, about an hour away. We head back, and I'm like trying to like ask him, so like, do you believe? And he's just like, I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to talk about it, but no, I don't think I believe. And I'm like, are you kidding me? I don't know, man. But so that's the story of that. I don't think that that was like the defining moment that this person believed in the supernatural, but for me, it was definitely like, and for me, it's always going to be in the back of my mind of like, nah, that was definitely something. The kids were like, you better not be taking my candy. What are you doing trying to take my candy, skeptic? I don't know. I'm just making something up. You saw my Wendigo video. Which one's that one? Leave. Oh, Twix. Yes, Twix. You have family in Colorado. Have you visited to the Stanley? I love Colorado. I used to live there. I moved back to LA because I was born here. My family has always lived here. So I moved back to LA in end of 2021, and I do miss it. I've gone back to visit twice now. I love Colorado. I think that there's so many beautiful parts of Colorado. And I mean, whenever you think of like haunted locations, I know everyone brings up Estes Park and the Stanley, but there's so much history that isn't told out there, especially like the more the western part of the state of Colorado. Very beautiful. Crunch is underrated. Oh, yes, yes, I know what you're talking about. Crunch is underrated. It is. It's definitely, I will admit, I don't always crave it. If I'm like trick or treating and I have a bag of candy, and if it's in there, I'm gonna eat it. But do I like buy it? Nah, you're right, it's underrated. But I will definitely settle for Crunch over other chocolates in the bin. I am definitely a Kit Kat person. I love Twix. I do love Snickers. That's my favorite. But yes, Crunch is definitely up there. It's definitely one that, you know, if you can't find the other one, get that. But you gotta go to the Stanley, the western part of Colorado. So I got married in Ouray or Ouray. I know people pronounce it different combinations. Tomato, tomato. Plus, that's just the ongoing joke of me on the internet. People make fun of how I pronounce everything. A payday. Wait, what's the payday? Is that the one where are they like the little chocolate balls? And they have like kind of like a crunch. Oh God, I can't describe it. You know, one that I definitely don't like, and I remember for Beetlejuice, they were really trying to promote this chocolate, and I was like, oh God, please no. And I got a bunch of these. It was the Butterfinger. The Butterfinger. Why? Why the Butterfinger? Peanuts with a caramel and caramel. See, is it caramel or caramel? I don't know. It just, to me, it's like I mispronounce a lot of things. So oh, underrated. We just need to make a list of underrated chocolates at this point. I swear. But butter, I'm not a fan of it. I'm sorry. Don't hate me. I'm not a fan of Butterfinger. And I got like a bunch of Butterfinger because of Beetlejuice. We went to like, there's an event here in Hollywood, and they're like, grab a thing of chocolate, and then I look and it's Butterfinger, and I'm like, oh my gosh. My hopes went down the drain. Thank you. You know, so here's the thing. I wonder the combinations of pronunciation, because I feel like all of us have different reasonings as to why we either pronounce things. Obviously, it's like, what part of the states do you live in, or where do you live in? Where did you grow up? Are you bilingual? And it's like, I think people often assume that like your mouth and your ear are two different things. And as much as you would want it to work together cohesively, it doesn't happen that way. How many times have we met somebody with a very unique name and you're like, "Wait a minute, what how do you say it?" And like I'm definitely the type of person where I feel awful. So I will ask that person over and over again like, "How do I pronounce your name?" Because I do not want to mispronounce your name. I feel like such a jerk. So I will that's something I do put a lot of effort in. If someone tells me their name, I will like immediately, and if I cannot pronounce it or have never heard it, I will try over and over again because I think that that sucks. Like the idea that like people mispronounce your name or even say the wrong name. So that does suck. But yeah. The Butterfingers. Yeah, yeah, no, there was a lot. We gave them to my neighbor. I gave it to my neighbor because her she works at a school, and so I was like, "Here you go. Can you please?" Chris says, "Do you think you'll ever do a ghost hunt or go to a haunted place?" So, I think I would. Okay, there are two things here with this, and I would love to go solo, but it's really hard with a lot of places, and it's also kind of scary because I'm not scared of spirits. I'm scared of people, especially with like urban exploration, abandoned places. A lot of that has a lot to do with like trespassing, or are there squatters there? Is there like fishy things, uh, sketchy things going on? So that's one of the reasons why I wouldn't go solo, especially since I'm a woman. But thank you. I think it's also what would be really fun to do is if you do go with a group of people and you rotate rooms and you're in the room solo. Because I feel like everybody gets different experiences or even similar experiences to a place if it's haunted. So I think that might be interesting. But I don't know. It hasn't there. Okay, so this is where I'm like so sad. So I recorded, not recorded. I went to go film for a TV show 2 years ago at this point. I don't know, time has flown by. It's been 2 years. And at this point, I don't even care because it's been 2 years and I don't know if they ever release the episode, but I went to go film for a TV show and I was on the Lexington. And if you don't know what that is a World War II ship in Corpus Christi, Texas. And yes, I went to go see Selena's final resting place. And but yeah, I went to go film there for a TV show, and I had the opportunity to be on parts of the ship solo, very eerie. And I remember that there was somebody there that was cleaning on the ship, and he pulled me aside and he was explaining to me how for the 4th of July, oh my God, crazy because we just passed the 4th of July, but for the 4th of July, they do fireworks out there. And he stayed overnight to work. And he was in one of the rooms and he was FaceTiming his sister, I think, and or it's just his family for the 4th of July since he had to spend the night on the ship and clean, and since they were doing like a very late night shift. And so he said that when he was FaceTiming that they like I think it was his sister, she was like, who's behind you? And he's like, there shouldn't be anyone behind me. Like this is the room that I have to myself and like it's for employees only. There was like a shadow or something like that. The heart me. Oh, thank you, Jane. Oh, thanks. Oh, thank you so much. 888. That's actually one of my favorite numbers. So yeah, it was like he told me that story. We did not get that story on film because there was other stuff that like there was just a very packed day. But yeah, they talked about that. Like people even there like off camera were just like this place is haunted and da da da. And I believe Russ was the tour guy. He does a lot of like the tour, yeah, like he does like the tour guide stuff for people. And he was telling me that he's a veteran and he has worked on the ship for many years and he calls the spirits there his shipmates. Hello. His shipmates. So cute. Oh no, Chris, you're totally fine. I just wanted to clarify how it's like that is a really good question, but it's so complicated. So yeah, I thought I would love to go back to the Lexington. It is open to the public. Like if you guys ever like are in the area or in Texas and would want to visit, you can visit. It is open. They have also like a little cafe area in the main entrance and a little shop and all kinds of stuff. It's worth visiting. I mean, I think, I used to think, all right, the energy on the Lexington is obviously very different than the one at the Queen Mary, but I think the most haunted place for me, at least, that I believe is the Queen Mary. That is because that is the place where not only have I captured apparitions on camera that have disappeared, which is why I don't really like telling the story, because it's like it's hard to believe, and I don't blame people if they don't believe me for that story, which I don't like. That's why I don't share it as often, because it's like, yeah, of course, what a coincidence that it disappears when you upload the picture. But for me, it was definitely very creepy when I first went on the ship and I got footage of a apparition and then it disappeared. Thank you for liking the live. Um, and then as of last year, right? Was it last year? I have to double check. I saw a apparition at the Queen Mary manifest in front of me, and also a stranger. And when I walked back with that said stranger, we both saw the same thing. And so as of right now, I think that the Queen Mary for me is one of the most haunted places. Yes, it's always good to be open to all the possibilities. For sure. You have to. Thank you. Oh my gosh. Thank you so much. Thank you, Lunatic. Thank you. No, yeah, I think it's always good to walk back all of the evidence, try to have healthy skepticism with it as well, right? Rather than assume everything is paranormal. So it's always good to balance out those two things. So yeah, I don't know. That's why I always tell people, like, no, I think you should. I think you should approach it from both perspectives. It's never good to like sway one way or the other 100%. You want to be very balanced with all of that stuff. So yeah. But that being said, I will play another story because I'm talking a lot and I have yet to finish my face.
And I'd love to read that.
Now, there was this woman named Sherry who moved into this house with her 2 children in Madison, Wisconsin.
Ooh,
now,
the Midwest.
She said, at the time, she didn't believe in anything supernatural. She really thought that was a bunch of nonsense. But she said, right away when they moved in, she would notice, out of the corner of her eye, sometimes shadows moving across the walls. She would hear strange noises that she couldn't explain. But she said for the most part, it was just a normal house. One night, she's upstairs in her bedroom and she's folding laundry. She hears talking coming from her son's room. So she makes her way over to her room. The door's closed. And she hears her son having a full-on conversation with someone. And she's like, who is he talking to, at 12:30 at night? So she opens the door, and when she looks in his room, he is not in his bed.
Oh so my goodness.
She looks down and sees him next to the side of his bed, on his knees, crouched down, with his head under the bed, talking to someone. And she's like, hey, who are you talking to? Like, who's under there? And her son's like, I can't tell you. And she said, what do you mean you can't tell me? Like, who's under the bed? And he's like, I can't say. He'll get mad. And she's like, what? Who's under there? So she runs over to the bed. I would be freaking out. She looks underneath there. It's empty. There's nothing under there. So she's like, you know what? Just get back in bed. Like, just stop, doing whatever you're doing. Several weeks pass, and like on a regular basis, she keeps finding her son talking to someone under the bed, except there's no one there. So
what?
After a few weeks of this happening, she thinks maybe something is wrong with her son. So she takes him to this child therapist. The therapist assesses him and says, he seems completely fine. It's probably just his imagination. So several months pass, and he keeps on doing this. Well, one day she's sitting down in the living room with him, and they're talking, when she notices he has some scratches and bruises all over his body.
Oh my gosh.
And she's like, where did you get those scratches and bruises from? Like, what's going on? And he's like, I can't tell you.
This
She's
child.
like, yes, you have to tell me, like, what is going on with you? And finally he breaks down and he starts crying and stuff. And he just starts freaking out. And then he runs up to his room. So the mom, you know, at this time is like, I don't know what to do. Like, what is going on with my son? Like, she's just panicking.
Right. As
Later
she should.
that night, she's awoken to her son screaming in his bedroom. She runs as fast as she can. She goes in his room. She finds him halfway underneath the bed. He's grabbing onto the bed frame, and it looks like something is pulling him under the bed. So she immediately grabs him, pulls him out from under the bed. She looks under there. There's no one there. So she's like, you know what? This is weird. Like, you're sleeping with me tonight. You're going to be in bed with me tonight. So they go back to her bedroom.
Real talk. I almost feel like I wouldn't have waited this long. No offense to her. I don't think I would have waited that long to be like, you know what, son? Now that you're getting dragged across the bed, you can now sleep with me. I would have been like, okay, you keep talking to yourself. You're having scratches and bruises. It is time. You have lost those privileges. Either set up a camera or, you know, I would have just said you're coming to go to my bed to sleep because what is happening here? But also, I mean, I say cameras, but also I don't know when this happened. It could have been a time before people had footage to set up a camera like that, like they do now. I don't know.
He lays down, he falls asleep. She's sitting in bed, she can't sleep. She's like freaked out about this whole situation. When all of a sudden she hears, shh, hey, come under the bed. And she's like, what? She looks over, her son is sleeping. But then once again she hears, hey, come here, under the bed. I need to talk to you. And it's like a man's voice. And she's like, no, who are you? Like, go away. And the man's like, come on, get under the bed. I need to tell you something. And like, she's like, no, I'm not going under the bed. And she said this man, whoever he was, just started yelling obscenities and getting really angry. So she grabs
Call
her
the
son,
police,
they
man.
get out of the house, and she said she left that night and never went back. And still to this day, that house sits there. And she said she's talked to the neighbors, and they said since she's moved, like several families have lived there and they move out. I lied. Because this...
Okay, so this is a new story. By the way, I'm listening to a compilation of scary stories that have been collected off of TikTok. So if it does jump from like other stories, there you have it. Obviously, I think that last story it just seemed a little bit more like not a real story, but just like a retelling of like a scary story of some kind. But regardless, that made me think of somebody that like would, you know how there's like this phenomenon where people live in people's homes. I know I've said it a few different times on the lives, but where people either live in the crawl space or in the attic, and then they like memorize the owner's schedules, and whenever they're not home or they're sleeping, they'll come out and eat food from the kitchen, take things. That's what I thought. So wait, I'm sorry, what was that?
Story that I'm about to tell you is the scariest story I've ever heard. If you're new here, hi. I just talk about some pretty scary stuff, and recently I opened an email where anyone who finds this page would be able to submit their ghost stories. And let me tell you, not only have I been getting an abundance of stories that I have loved reading that are from every corner of the earth, these are actually scary. What I mean by actually scary is exactly that. They actually freak me out. On my last video, I said this was the scariest story that I've ever heard. This one. So I just heard scratching, and as you can see, it's still day out, and that's the only time I really film these videos is during the day because I'm a scaredy cat. So I don't know what that's about, because I thought it was my boyfriend pranking me, so I looked outside, and there's no one there. Only when I did the intro for this person. So I'm going to redo it, and if it happens again, I hope it's on video. So anyways, this story comes from Dakota, who opens the email like this. This is the story about who disguised itself as a little girl and haunted me for 2 years.
Okay, she said demon. So she said this is a story about a demon who disguised itself as a little girl. Because she paused it. I don't know if she got scared, so that's what she wanted to say. The demon term. But I will say it so we all know. If ever in Texas. Yes, I want to visit Texas so badly. I want to go back to Lexington. I didn't get a chance when I was in Corpus Christi. I did get to visit Selena's final resting place, but I had to wake up so early because it was a filming day, so early to do it. That was a scary story in itself, actually. Not paranormal, but just like eerie, scary story. But I did visit her final resting place, and luckily it is like an open cemetery. Um, I don't, there is an entrance. I'm not sure if it's super gated. However, her final resting place does have like fences up and stuff like that. So you cannot like just walk up to her final resting place and like really see it. You have to see it through like a fence, sadly. But yeah. Oh, thanks. Yes, Texas is always a good time. At least when I was there, when I went to visit, that was a fun time. But, and I'm sure, you know, there's so many different places. I've heard from friends who live in Texas, there's so much to do. It's just such a big state too. So like, I'm sure like the north, south, and even the central part, there's just different things going on. I mean, kind of like California, like South California versus like Central LA, North, San Francisco, everything's different. So, anyway, but all this to say is that I would love to visit the Lexington, and if you haven't gone, you should go. Okay, her story.
Dakota then gives us some background context and says that she's a medium. She has seen, felt, heard, and touched spirits since she was around 5 years old, which in retrospect is really scary when you think about it. But she says it all started when she was staying at her mom's house 2 hours away. She had a friend who lived right in front of the woods, and they decided to play hide and go seek. So Dakota finds a great hiding spot in between a shed and a chain link fence. And she says she was hiding, looks over to her right, and on the other side of the fence is a little girl staring at her. And as soon as her and this little girl made eye contact, the little girl reached through the chain link fence and grabbed her wrist.
Ooh.
Dakota yanks her hand back and looks back at this little girl, and she is not there anymore. It is also to be noted that this was around fall time, so there were leaves on the ground and branches and twigs and etc. And she didn't hear anyone walk away or run. So Dakota runs out, tries to tell her friend what had happened, and her friend is just not having it because she's scared. Fast forward 2 months, and she's back at her dad's house and having a sleepover with an old friend. As Dakota and her friend are talking to each other on her bed, she looks over at the doorway, and the little girl is standing right in the doorway. She didn't really think anything about it because at the time, all the neighbor kids were allowed to just kind of walk in her house. And I know families like that, so I understand. But she did a double take, and the little girl was gone the next time she looked. She asked her friend, "Did you see someone?" And her friend said, "No, I didn't see anyone." And Dakota said, "Little did I know this was the beginning of a 2-year ordeal." Dakota says every day since then, she sees this little girl in her house.
Wow.
And this little girl did not talk. She just stared at Dakota a lot of the time. And sometimes she would only show half of her face from around the corner.
Whoa.
And I'm going to quote this. But her favorite thing to do was watch me sleep. Dakota includes in her email that she likes sleeping in complete darkness. And the only thing...
Huh? Chris says, do I think we... Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I just... who knows? I don't know what I want. Well, Frederick, I will just block you. I don't like your vibes. Like, what a weird thing. Threaten to block me, I will just block you. Who needs that negativity? Like, keep scrolling. I always feel like, you know, I open up my phone to, you know, have fun, especially on a platform. And this is just goes for anybody. It's like you should never experience any negativity on your phone because it's your phone. It's like where you go to talk to friends, loved ones, and especially if you're using like social media, you want to be entertained or you want to learn. Who needs that negativity? Use the block button. It will not hurt my feelings. And no one is entitled to those things. So, yep.
That is radiating light in her room is her alarm clock that is blue. And she says every single night she would wake up and see this little girl standing in the doorway, watching her sleep. Dakota says that the most active this little girl was when she was home alone, cleaning her room. Dakota, while cleaning her room, looks over into the living room, and just for some context, she lives in a trailer, so it's completely open concept, so you can look through rooms. She looks into the living room and sees a little girl standing there watching her.
Dun dun
As soon as they
dun.
make eye contact, the little girl runs into the kitchen. So Dakota follows her. And once she goes into the kitchen, the little girl's standing in front of the fridge. The moment they make eye contact, the little girl runs into her dad's room. So she goes into her dad's room. Nobody's there. She's looking around. Nothing. Hears a loud bang coming from the laundry room. Goes into the laundry room. Sees the little girl standing in front of the washer and dryer. And she runs back into the kitchen, and Dakota didn't see her the rest of the day. And Dakota says that it was really common for this little girl to not speak ever, but she would want Dakota's attention, so she would run around and kick things and knock things off counters and slam cabinets, etc. Fast forward 2 years, and Dakota's obviously used to it by now, but she hasn't seen this little girl in 4 months. Until one day, she saw her in her dream, and it was Dakota's first lucid dream. Dakota says that she goes to sleep, wakes up, and everything in her dream feels so real. She turns over at the clock and it reads 3:16. When Dakota turns her head back around, there the little girl is. And she looks normal.
That is
normal
eerie.
little girl that she's seen for the past 2 years at this point. And all of a sudden, this little girl starts to look really mangled and disgusting. She starts developing this.
I mean, it's interesting because, like, I know that they're saying, oh, they've concluded that whatever this entity was in their home was a demon. It's interesting because it definitely seems like it wanted her attention and it wanted to tell her something. And I'm wondering if, like, because it sounds to me too, and maybe if anyone else got more information on it, or remembers more details, it seems that at a certain age, since she was very young when this happened, I'm wondering if there was something in her life happening outside of the story that, like, I guess made her more open, or it was drawing in negativity in her life, and maybe that's why she was seeing something. I'm always curious about that because I have noticed that when people have, like, they experience bad hauntings, for the lack of term, I'm going to say bad hauntings, but like scary hauntings, put it that way. Scary hauntings, usually something major is happening in their lives, or something traumatic has happened too. I'm very curious. I wonder, like, what has happened or what was happening in her life back then, if at all, right? I mean, if it did, nothing happened, but I'm wondering if something did, and if, like, that was manifesting more negativity, or it kind of like catapulted more of like this traumatic haunting, or like interaction with like a demon, if that's, what happened.
Smile and these teeth, and sprints at Dakota, where Dakota falls back in her bed and wakes up. Looks over at the clock, 3:16. Dakota gets up, goes to the bathroom, and as she's standing up from using the bathroom, the little girl's standing in the doorway. She looked like the same little girl that she's seen.
Oh, he believes in the
past 2 years,
paranormal.
until again, she looked really mangled and disgusting, and sprints at Dakota, where Dakota falls backwards, screaming, and they had this animal cage in their bathtub at the time that they were cleaning, falls back on that, and she could feel the cage under her. But nonetheless, she wakes up again. And it is, again, 3:16 a.m.
Interesting.
But at this point, Dakota is too scared to move and too scared to do anything, so she just sits there until the sun comes up, where she feels safe.
I mean,
Dakota then, that
don't blame
morning,
her.
started to feel this burning sensation on her back, goes and looks in the mirror, and there's a huge gash on her back from where she fell onto something. Her then best friend comes over later that day and also has spiritual connections, and tells her about this dream that she had where she was watching in third person and verbatim describes the dream that Dakota had twice. And at this point in time, Dakota did not tell her what was going on. Dakota then ends her email by telling us that if you see a clock or a phone in your dream, it means you're not really dreaming. And as corny as it sounds, she really and truly believes that this little girl was disguised as a trying to get her when she was in her most vulnerable state, sleeping. But that experience was 5 years ago, and she hasn't seen that little girl since.
Oh, so she wasn't young.
Say. I don't know how people deal with that stuff for years. I dealt with it for a month, and no. That story was really long. However, I think it was the best story I've read so far. Anyways, that's going to do it for me. Stay tuned for my ghost stories.
Tell me a scary story. I'll go first. For starters, I live in the app.
Okay, so that's interesting. I mean, genuine question for people. How do you think you discern if you have had haunting or had haunting happen or a paranormal experience happening? How do you discern whether something is like demonic or not? Because based on what I was hearing from the story, is that, you know, this happened 5 years ago. This person is intuitive, but I didn't really understand 1,000% other than like having a nightmare. What was the demonic activity? Was it like, what were other things happening in her life? Because I will give you an example. So I knew a paranormal investigator, and he rarely likes to talk about this experience, but he was talking about how the levels of possession and demonic activity, there's like different stages, and it like manifests in that way, I suppose, at least according to him. And he said that he experienced it at first by like, in his life, he was dealing with depression, he was dealing with loss and grief and all kinds of stuff happening in his life. And gradually he it started to become more about his life, like losing his job, having fallouts. Like it just seemed like when it went from like sadness, grief to a lot of bad things happening, to not being able to get out of it, to not feeling like himself, and then having these thoughts and voices. And he hates talking about it. He does not talk about it, but it becomes like a gradual step-by-step thing. And so when I hear these stories of like, I had a bad nightmare, that was demonic, and I'm not dismissing this person's experience by any means, I'm wondering, was there more? Like, what else felt demonic? Or were you just scared, and did you think that was demonic? Because I think for me, with working with other people and like reading people and reading, you know, going to places and doing house cleansings, so a lot of the times it could be like a misunderstanding of what's happening, or maybe you're so uncertain by things that it causes fear, and again, thus a misunderstanding. So I guess I'm just curious. I'm not being skeptical. Well, I guess I am being skeptical, but in a way of like, well, what else happened? Was it like a step-by-step thing? Was it because you saw this little girl and then you had a dream and it like came for you? What was it that created the notion that this was demonic? You know, my real name is Steffany. It is Steffany.
Appalachian Mountains. Our dogs used to run off all the time. One day, me and my younger cousin got off of the bus and we noticed that the dogs were nowhere to be found. We lived surrounded completely by forest. Them not being...
It is Steffany, and fun story of why it's spelt this way is because when I was younger, my sister loved the movie Breakfast at Tiffany's. And you know, Tiffany spelled as Tiffany. And my sister really wanted to name me Tiffany, but my dad was like, well, that's not really like a Latino name. So they settled for Steffany. And there's different variations on how to spell Steffany. I know the most popular one in the States is with a PH, and she did not know how to spell it with a PH. She just remembered the name Tiffany, and she was like, I think she's 10 years older than me. So she was like, all right, I'm going to name her Steffany, but we're going to spell it like Tiffany. And so that's why my name is spelled Steffany. So that's the fun story. And I've watched Breakfast at Tiffany's, and I just, you know, the story is, it's for its time. Did it Was I super into it? No. However, I love Audrey Hepburn. I loved her looks. I loved the scene of the cat and how she finds her cat, and in the rain she's cuddling with her cat because I'm a cat person. Love parts of the film. I think it was, you know, certain parts for its time. I see why it was there. Would I be super, like, would I say that's like my favorite film? No, it's not my favorite film, but it is definitely a film that I think about. Oh, that's how my name came to be, from that movie. So there's that. Okay, so shall we continue the story? Oh yeah, we will.
And there wasn't unusual, so we decided just to go off and look for them in the woods. Which is something we did pretty often, so we weren't scared. Me and my cousin started walking through the woods, calling for the dogs, and I had the stupid idea to start whistling. We heard what sounded like our dog barking coming from deeper in the woods, so we started walking towards the sound. The deeper we were walking in the woods towards the sound, started getting this really bad feeling in my gut that we needed to turn around. I told my cousin how I was feeling, and he told me that he was sure that that was our dogs barking. We decided to keep walking, and then we heard a whistle coming from the direction that the dog's barking was coming from. When I was whistling, I wasn't doing like a normal whistle, I was doing this weird whistle, and this sounded just like the weird whistle I had just done. Almost like whatever it was copying me. We stopped walking and we heard more barking, and I just knew that it wasn't our dogs barking. Like, it did sound similar, but it just wasn't the same. That's when my little cousin looked at me scared, like he was about to say something, and I told.
So this is one of those whistling stories, but I'm gonna have to end the live now. This was fun. I did not get flagged doing a live, so that's great. But I do appreciate people over on YouTube for coming to hang out also on YouTube. I rarely do lives on YouTube, and I've been wanting to do more on YouTube lives. And also I guess YouTube has a really interesting feature now where you can also discover people on there, so that's interesting. So thank you for the likes over on YouTube. Thank you so much for the likes on TikTok. Like, thank you. Almost close to 2,000 likes. Thank you, and thank you for hanging out with me. No, it's been a minute, and you can kind of see that the room looks different. I don't know if anyone was part of my past lives, but we did a paint job. Mostly my husband did the paint job, and I moved some furniture out so it's more open in here. So that's why my dolls and all the spooky stuff is further back, but that's okay. And then all like my equipment and everything is in this drawer. I need to organize that. But anyway, this was fun as always. Thank you for joining me. I'm going to end the live over on YouTube first. So goodbye, everybody on YouTube.